All right, everyone. I have Brittni here with me. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay! As am I. I feel like this has been something that I've been really looking forward to. And for my listeners, the topics are so good and juicy. So I would love to first open up with what are you most excited about that's coming up in your life? It can be literally anything.
Oh, I love that. I have a couple trips planned throughout the spring and summer. Like, I'm going to be going back down to the Florida Keys and just kind of getting some of that travel bug out.
Mm.
I've been heavy in work mode for the last couple, work and family mode, I'll say, for the last couple months. And now I'm like, okay, what do I want to adventure in? Like, where do I want to go
Yeah.
explore? And so I'd say that there's a lot of other things that kind of floating around as ideas, but I think just anytime I'm on a plane going somewhere new or old, it's exciting for me.
Oh, I love that. Travel is probably one of my favorite things in the world. So I'm with you on that. It's so much fun, like the anticipation of like when you have a trip planned and just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait, like exploring. And yeah, I absolutely love that. That's so fun.
Woohoo.
So I would love
Excited.
to kind of hear a little bit more like about your background and just kind of share like how you became a coach and maybe some stories about how you got to like where you are today. I would love to hear.
Absolutely. There's been so many twists and turns. It's kind of amazing that I even did get to this point. I'll take you back to when I was just a little girl, kindergarten age or so. I first started struggling with pretty severe anxiety, like from the get-go. And with that came just a lot of motivation, a lot of ambition, but also things like perfectionism and just heavy inner criticism. And through all of that, I had this combination of wanting to create something amazing, wanting to put good out into this world, wanting to like leave a legacy of sorts. And I was extremely career oriented. I was excited and motivated to do the work and to put in effort and energy. And that fueled a couple decades of anxiety and a lot of directions that were interesting but never like hit home. I always had this feeling that was like, I have so much to offer. I have so much I want to build and create. And every single direction and path I tried going in just kept hitting up against dead ends, just were not panning out, didn't make me excited. There was nothing I felt like, oh my gosh, I can see myself doing this for the next 40, 50 plus years. Like nothing.
Right.
So I fast forward, I'm in my early 20s. I had graduated from college. I was happy, just kind of working, but I still was in that like go, 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 high hustle energy and not creating for me. When 2020 hit, just like the rest of the world, when the rest of the world slowed down and stopped, so did I. And it was the first time since I was a very little girl that I actually had time to hit pause and reflect. And I started asking myself questions like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Why do I want this? What do I even want? And I realized that all of the momentum and motivation I had was just getting used and abused in many workplaces. And there was no fulfillment, there was no passion. It was, um, and I was just in burnout. I was exhausted. I had been in that hustle mode for so long. My anxiety was at an all-time high. And so when I hit this pause and started asking myself these questions, I was able to pivot. And that was the year I started my first online business. And through that, I just fell in love with entrepreneurship and getting to be my own boss. And really, for the first time ever, what I was creating was for me. And I just loved that whole process. That business was not the end all be all, but it did get me kickstarted into the world of entrepreneurship. And then at the end of that year, I was listening to this podcast where a guest speaker was a life coach who had taken her entire life's work and built a coaching program. And everything she was saying was just so resonant. It was all about getting to the root of problems, true transformation, lasting change, not just the surface level fluff, not just the highlight reel that I had seen on social media. It was real, authentic of helping people. And I ended up the next year in that coaching program. It's a year-long certification program, and it's a very inner outer approach. So the first couple months of it, as I was learning what coaching is, how to coach, that process involved coaching myself, coaching peers, being coached on by peers, and it was the most transformative, empowering, life-changing year. It was one of those things where from the moment I started diving into like what actually is coaching. Not again, not the highlight reel, not
Right.
the go 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 do, but like this type of coaching where it's compassion based and
I love it.
transformative and like genuinely transformative. That's such a buzzword, but the results of actually changing my life, I was like it was magic. It was amazing. And I just knew to my core, like I do not believe that purpose and career are connected for everyone. I do believe that for
Yes.
myself. Like I have known, like I said, like even as a little girl, I love working. And when I found the coaching world and the self-development world, I was like, this is why I'm here. Like this is
Right.
part of my biggest path. Like it has been the most rewarding, the most uplifting, empowering, and just expanding like experience. It's been amazing. So that's kind of the long story
Wow.
short of how I got there was just a ton of momentum, a ton of that do energy,
Uh-huh.
and then letting life kind of guide me to where I was supposed to be. And from that, I was able to heal my anxiety, heal that inner child, just work through so many of my own limiting beliefs and my own subconscious programmings that had kept me stuck and had kept me in doubting what I'm capable of and what I could do and just what's possible. It's been everything.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story because I think so many people are probably going to listen to this and be like, I can relate to you so much in some capacity, right? Because I feel like when you're going through life and you're like, you know, like I find the same thing. Like some people are like, okay, I want to do this and they do it and they love it, right? And then there's some people kind of maybe similar to you and I, trial and error. You start something and you're like, am I gonna like this? And then you do it and you're like, this is not for me. So I think that that's so cool though, because you went through the motions and you're like, I know I have something out there that's bigger and better for me that's going to be like set my soul on fire type of thing. And I feel like you like went for it. And I love that. And it's so funny you said the 2020 thing because I find so many people went through the same thing in 2020. It was almost like a pivotal time in their life where they're like, am I gonna go for this thing that I'm a little scared about? I need to learn more about. And they just went for it. And I love that. I love that so much. It's such a powerful year, obviously, like good and bad. But I think a lot of good things happen from that year because we all were like put on pause. And it was just very impactful. So I love hearing that from you and just like you kind of figured out, okay, like this is what I'm loving doing. So I think that's so cool. I really I love that. So I'd love to kind of know more a little bit about like healing anxiety because I think that that's something that's so powerful. And I feel like most people in the world have anxiety, if not every day, at some capacity in their life. So maybe we kind of discuss maybe some like tips or tricks that worked for you or maybe worked for like your coaching clients and just kind of let's dive into that a little bit. I would love to touch on that.
Absolutely. Healing my anxiety was one of the first, I'll say, results that I experienced from coaching, but like that in itself was priceless to me. So, like I mentioned, I started experiencing severe anxiety when I was very little, like in kindergarten. And at the time, and honestly, from that point for the next 2 decades, I didn't even really understand it was anxiety. Mental health was not really something my family was open to. It was very much something I masked from the entire world. I learned very early on that this equals weakness, therefore I hide it. And that was how I carried on to the point where when I was in high school, I was always called bubbly and the cheerleader, like those type of that type of personality. And I always had a smile on my face. And I was so disconnected internally. I was struggling so much. I mean, I was barely making it, and no one knew. And then I get to college and I add on working full time while also being a very ambitious student. And from that, like my anxiety just kept catapulting to the point where every single morning I would wake up and the first thing I would do was go throw up. My body was in such an intense phase. But because it had built over years, I didn't realize that was abnormal. I just thought it was how I was. It's just part of my life, how I am. I didn't understand it's like this part, this thing that's separate from me. That was the first kind of experience I had with mindset work was realizing like I have anxiety. I am not my anxiety.
Yes.
That
Love
that
it.
hearing that and understanding that was game changing. I'm going to say it again, everyone listening. I have anxiety. I am not my anxiety. Because when I was able to start putting a little bit of distance between myself and this other entity of anxiety, I was able to start understanding I am so much more than this anxiety. I'm so much more than
Absolutely.
this experience. And from there, I can start owning the parts of me that have anxiety but are not the anxiety.
Right.
So that was kind of the first thing was I opened up my mind to understanding that there's a part of me, it's separate than me, it is not my identity, and started to break that apart. And then from there, I have a very compassion based approach to working with blocks, including ones like anxiety. This also applies to things like procrastination and self doubt. I do not believe blocks are bad or are in the way. They are the way. If it's a part of me, it's there to help me in some way or another. And I kind of equate them to toddlers. It's like it wants to help, it wants what's best, it wants to support, but it doesn't always know the best way to do that. So with this anxiety, I could start diving into like what is the underlying thing that is perpetuating this? Like what are the beliefs? What are the memories? What are the thoughts that are feeding the anxiety? And when I can look at that and say, so a lot of it came from my perfectionist, which was also fueled by my inner critic. And both of those parts just wanted to protect me from my work and output being criticized. There was a lot of connection between if my work is criticized, then I am criticized. If my work is not good enough, I am not good enough. There was a big connection there in my mind. And so when I was able to start realizing like, oh, this part of me, it just wants to make sure that what I put out is good, is integrous, that it's adding value to the world, that's not adding harm, things along those lines. And so by realizing the intention behind it was pure and innocent, the approach and strategy is not great. It's, leaving me throwing up every morning. But the intention of this block is an innocent intention. So now I can at least hold space for this block, the anxiety. Again, this also applies to these other things too. But I could hold space and say, okay, it's not trying to hurt me. It
Mhm.
wants to help. And at least just acknowledging, like, I see you. I see that you're trying to support me. I love you for trying to support me. Just shifting the way I viewed the anxiety
Mhm.
into a compassion based view allowed it to just soften. And every single time it softened, I could feel that. I noticed it. It was direct feedback that by just sending love and acknowledgement to the anxiety, it was easing it. It was helping it heal because it was being met. And this was not an
Mm.
overnight approach. And I also want to say, like,
Right.
there's no end. Here, I'm
Right.
years into this and I still have my anxiety pop up. It is still
Totally.
along with me. But now my anxiety is in the car with me. It's not in the driver's seat. And that's
Yes.
the key difference. And
That's
on top of that,
powerful.
by transitioning the way I viewed it, now whenever the anxiety does pop up, I know what's going on. I can dive within, say, like,
Yes.
what is the intention here? What is the purpose of it? What is it trying to tell me? Where's the feedback? Making sure that those needs get met and just holding space for myself at every step along the way. It has been such a shift in how I live and just how I approach life and every single day.
That's so powerful. And I think too, like knowing yourself and like I love that you said that, like ask yourself those questions like, okay, what is coming up for me right now? And how am I feeling about this? Because if something is making you feel anxious, trying to pinpoint like what it is, or maybe you're like questioning, why am I anxious right now? And trying to get to the root cause. And I loved that you talked about like the intention behind it. That is such a good tip and like really something that people can definitely use. So I love that. And you kind of reminded me of like, our mindset is, and obviously like my listeners know, but my podcast name is My Naked Mindset. So it's like the word mindset is so powerful, but I want to kind of hear from you like in your terms, what does mindset, like mastering your mindset mean to you in like your words? I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I visualize it as being a pillar in the storm of life. And so when you are able to master your mindset, and I kind of lead into like self mastery, when you can genuinely hold space and own for your entire inner experience, the thoughts that come through, the sensations and energies and emotions that come through, and not cave into it, not buy into it, but stand in your true knowing, in your authentic self, in your what's aligned for you. And then as life happens, you're just holding space for yourself no matter what happens. To me, that's what mastering your mindset is, because we will never be able to control 99% of the things that we experience in life.
Yes.
And a lot of the times where mindset work starts is opening up to like, what else? So if I can't control this, what else is here for me?
Mm,
What else is available? Whether you're looking for solutions, ideas, or like even with the blocks, like, okay, this isn't working. What
right.
else?
I
And
like that.
when we can just have that openness and have a very like growth minded, open minded approach, and just again, and maybe not an approach, it's a way of being, because it's
Yes.
like a gym. When you go do mindset work, it's like going to the mindset gym. It's a
Love
muscle.
that.
And so when you build up that muscle, then as life's, you can hold for it. You can handle it. You know it's not going to take you out of the game. That doesn't
Right.
mean you're not going to have the human experience. It doesn't mean there's not going to be heavy emotions and pain along the way. But it
Mm.
does mean you've got you no matter what comes your way.
Yeah. Because I think at the end of the day, if everyone else in the world disappeared, like who do you have at the end of the day? Yourself. That is who you come home to every day. It's like you always have yourself. And I think that that's something some people, I mean, I think we've all been so hard on ourselves at times. And I think like that negative self talk or self sabotage is something that I think a lot of people, experience. And how can we avoid that negative self-talk, that self-sabotage, that doubting ourselves? No, I guess no matter what the situation is. Do you have any thoughts on that?
The first step is just bringing awareness to that pattern.
Mm,
However it shows up for you, whether it's the thoughts or if it's a gripping feeling, like it's gonna present differently, but it's gonna be the same pattern. Noticing the pattern is already gonna weaken it, because you can see like, oh, I'm in the pattern. And just from that, you can just take a moment to just give yourself the space you need to step out of the pattern. And that could look like, on a somatic way, just breathing into your body, just taking 30 seconds to breathe. Breathe into your heart space, into your center. It could also look like taking the thought that's hitting your head, if it's like the same one or the same theme, take that and bring it through a couple questions, like start poking holes into it. So, for example, one of my inner critic's thoughts that were really, really heavy earlier on was along the lines of, if this is good enough, then it will be good enough for others. And so it's a very like subtle thought. At surface level, you could be like, oh, makes sense. But when I started noticing that thought was perpetuating my I spent hours on tiny, minute details of things that no one would ever care about, because the perfectionist was perpetuating, like, if I think it's good enough, it'll be good enough for others. So then when I started doing my mindset work and I realized like this thought is the belief that's coming up over and over and over again, I can start poking holes and be like, okay, well, let's get specific. Let's define good enough. And then let's take it further. Good enough to who? And then you can start also questioning the truth of that thought. Can I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this isn't good enough or isn't worth putting out, or however you want to phrase it? Could I prove it in a court of law? Where is the evidence outside of my mind? Where is the evidence that this thought is true? And just starting to deconstruct those thoughts, same if it's about, about yourself, if it's doubting your decisions or your path or anything along those lines, start asking these things, like get specific. The ego, the human self,
Mm,
loves to hide in the vagueness of things.
right.
I was just talking with someone earlier today, and she said, along the lines of like, I need protection. I was like, protection from what? She said, protection from everything. I'm like,
Mm,
this right here is the human
interesting.
self. Mm-hmm. It
Oh,
hides in the vagueness because there's like, it feels like there's weight to it and like it's proof. But
yeah.
then when you start trying to make it get specific, there's nothing actually there. And
Wow.
that is just something where it's never going to be a one and done. This is the
Right. It's
mindset
a
gym. So
totally.
every time that thought comes up or every time that pattern presents, you have to catch it in the moment. Give yourself whatever you need. Again, like my two favorite ways are going to be the more mental gymnastics of deconstructing the thought or belief, or on the somatic base. I love just taking 30 seconds to breathe because I find that in just a few moments, my perspective expands
So
and I can
powerful.
shift, or even if it's just taking, like saying, oh, I am in this pattern,
Mm,
I'm not able to get out right now, I'm saving this project for later.
love it.
Even that is going to continue to um, uh, like weaken the pattern over and over
Right,
again.
right. Yeah, and I think being so aware, I love that you said like notice it right away. Like if you're having this negative pattern, negative thought, if you're continuously thinking about something and you're like, I don't want to be thinking about this. I love this. This is so good. And like defining, I love these tips because they're so anyone can use them in any situation. And I think that that's so powerful because I find that I think we all go through some shit in our heads and we're like, why am I thinking this? Or why do I want this person to think this about me? Right. I think that that's a huge thing. I'm sure you know of
Absolutely.
Mel Robbins, the let them theory. I have been like hooked on that thing right now.
Yes.
It's
Oh, so good.
so good. So I literally have a sticky note next to my desk that says let them. And I have been using it in pretty much every situation lately that I can because it is so powerful. And I love the message that she said recently. It was something like, can you control the thoughts that are in your head? Technically, technically, no. I mean, you can think about them and be like, I don't want to think about that, but like realistically, you cannot control what you think in your head. So
Right.
she says, why do you think that you can control what other people think about you or about whatever the case
Whew.
may be? And I was like, that is so good.
Mic drop. That is so good.
Right? So I have been thinking about that constantly. So I'm sharing that right now because I think that that is so powerful. So if you're going through it, just try to think about people don't care about the things that you do or what you're thinking or what you look like or what your outfit looks like as much as you do, right? Like I think we think so many people so much of we're out in the world and we're like, oh my god, like why are people staring at my outfit, like does it look stupid, like oh my gosh, I don't match, oh my god, my shoes look weird. But realistically, 9 times out of 10, people probably don't even care. They're so focused on themselves and what's going on in their world. They're not even thinking about you and what you got going on. And if they do judge you, let them, because
Yes.
it's so I'm so obsessed with it. I just got the book. I haven't started it yet, but if you are listening to this, please go get that book. Shameless plug for Mel Robbins because she's incredible. Her advice is so good. So I could go on a rampage all about that. But back to self-sabotage and kind of and I think another thing that kind of stems with this when you were talking about like breathing into your body. Let's talk about meditation because that is so unbelievably powerful. And when you said like, hey, I'm having this thought, like I need to like pause for a minute, I truly think that if you're in like an emotional state or you're stressed out at work, like something is happening, like literally just stopping for a second, even walking away and literally just going to sit in another room or like go on a walk and literally just start breathing and like trying to calm the nervous system, I think can be such a great tool. And I think something about the breath, we always have it, right? Like it's always
Yeah.
there, which I think is so powerful. So, if someone were to, want to try meditation, they've never tried it, like, do you have tips for like beginners about like how to kind of start using the breath work and meditation as a tool?
I do. And it resonates so much with me because I struggled with getting into meditation for years
It's
before I
hard.
finally was able to embody the value of it. It was
Mhm.
hard. My mind was very active and I didn't want to be in my body. I didn't want to
Yeah,
do like the breath work. I was always afraid it was going to trigger asthma. Like there's a lot of drama that I created around the theme of meditation and there was resistance. I was pushing it off. I would say if you know you want to start meditation, which my biased opinion is everyone should. I think meditation is
agreed.
an incredible gift we can give ourselves every single day. I also think that a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to have to go sit in silence for 30 seconds and, I mean, sorry, 30 minutes. And that's not true. You don't have to jump into the deep end.
Right.
When I started my meditation journey, even guided meditations, sometimes they worked for me. And then sometimes I found myself thinking about anything else and wasn't able to get into the guided meditations. I do think there's so much value there. So definitely try out guided meditations as you're like starting into it because having someone lead you on an experience is is very supportive when you're getting started and even at any point during the meditation journey. However, when I was getting started and I wanted to build my meditation muscle, I'll call it,
Mm,
I literally started with 1 minute. I would set my
love
timer on
it.
my phone for 60 seconds and I just held space for that experience for 1 minute. And if thoughts came, I was like, oh, there it goes. And then at the end of 1 minute, I was like, okay, I meditated. And then after a chunk of time, I moved up to 3 minutes and then 5 minutes. And it was something I built upon and built up my resilience with it, built up my like patience for it because
Yeah.
that is, I don't even quite know if patience is quite the right word, but it's like
Mm,
having to be okay with slowing down.
right.
That took me time to build up an okayness for.
Yeah.
And then as
I
I
love
started
that.
experiencing the effects of it, like realizing, oh my goodness, my nervous system's calmer, my days go just so much smoother when I start out this way. When I started seeing results, then that just fuels the motivation even more. And it's something where, at least for me, it is one of the first things that go out of my routines, but it's also one of the first things that gets brought back into my routine.
Yeah.
And I think just like letting yourself play, it doesn't have to be a one size fits all. And so there are some weeks where a couple moments every morning is my meditation practice. And then there's other weeks where I'm diving into an hour long guided meditation or something like that. It's a journey and
Mm,
it gets to be fluid and it gets to be what you want to receive from it. I think that there's a lot of power in just holding space in a silent meditation because then you're training your mind and you're observing your mind. And
yeah.
something too is seen like when I first started, I would think of thoughts as like clouds going by or cars driving by. It's like
Mm,
I watch it, I witness it, but I'm not buying into it. I'm not feeding it, giving it energy. I'm just observing.
I love that.
And I love I love getting people into it because it was such
Yeah.
a game changer for me.
It
And I'm
really is.
so familiar with the resistance for it.
Yes, I love that too because I think, and I like that you said start small because I think it can be intimidating, and I think that people think it's like the frog being like I think that that's what people think of when they think of meditation, but I feel like it's so much more than that. And I think the beautiful thing about it too is you can use it in pretty much any situation. Like if you're having trouble sleep, if you're having trouble with anxiety, depression, if you're having an anxious moment at work, like there's so many different things you can use them for. And like you said, the guided ones are beautiful, and like just finding what you like, because that's what really helped me figure out. And I'll plug this app that I love. It's called Insight Timer. It's so, so great. And I think that that one, honestly, like I said, if you're a beginner and like you're like, I want to start this, I want to try it out, try that app because it's so good. There's so many different ones, and you can do like you can do periods of time, like you can do like the 5 to 10 minute one, and then like really being able to filter exactly what you're wanting at that time. Like I do ones in the morning, and I love the morning ones because it's like such a beautiful time to like just kind of relax and have like a good way to like kind of kick off the day. So definitely definitely want to plug that, and I'll put it in the show notes for the folks listening. But that's a
Yeah,
really
that app
really
is a
powerful.
win.
Yes, I
Hmm.
love that one. So, and I think giving yourself grace too, like you said, you cannot expect you to do it like one or two times and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna have any thoughts, because I think having thoughts is normal, but it's just recognizing them. And I love that phrase that you said, like pretend they're clouds, like just moving in the air, or like cars going by. I think that's such a beautiful way to think about it, because it can be overwhelming when you're trying it out. But I think really like giving yourself the grace to be like, that's why they call it a practice, right? Because it is a practice. You
Yeah.
have to practice doing it. And as you do it more often, you will get better at it. And I think it's so enjoyable. I absolutely love it. And I love that that was your experience as well.
Yes. I think that a lot of people think that they have the expectation that if you successfully meditate, you have an empty or open mind, a spacious mind, period. And it's
Right.
like that is the result of doing the work and witnessing the cloud thoughts along the way. Because as you build
Hmm.
that up, the result is you're going to have the blank mind, but that's not the expectation from the get go. I
Right.
think too, this kind of goes hand in hand with breath work, which I love, love, love breath work. Something that I experienced early on in that journey was I was doing a breath work, I was part of a group, and my entire experience for it was almost nothingness. Like there was no visual, there was no experience from it. And I came out of that being like, what did I do wrong? And
Mm.
I remember the instructor telling me, like, what if this was life showing you that there's no right or wrong way to do it? And I even have chills
Ah.
as I'm saying that. So I would like
Wow.
just want to offer too that as you're leaning into meditation or breath work, there's no right or wrong. It's
Right.
your journey, your experience, your process, your practice. There's no wrong way to do it.
Yes, I love that. Everyone's, like you said, everyone's journey is different. And I think, yeah, yours might not look like mine and my friends, but I think that's the beauty of it too. I think it's just your own story.
Yeah.
I would love to kind of get into subconscious reprogramming. What is that? Because I'm definitely curious. I did some research on it, but I would love to kind of hear from your perspective. What is that?
This is one of my favorite parts of my work. So, the subconscious, we have two parts of our mind, the subconscious and the conscious. The conscious is the active mind, what we're thinking. Sometimes like I'll equate it to like the human self. It's a very online mind. The subconscious is how we operate 90 to 95% of our life from, and it's primarily developed in early childhood by the age of 7. It also will soak up different meanings from experiences or past events. And what it does is it's going to try to make meaning out of everything it receives, but it's like a child and it's not always factual. So, for example, if if your childhood self heard a parents arguing about money, the subconscious could make that mean money is stressful. And if there's no awareness of that subconscious belief getting implanted there, then as an adult and in your adult life, you're operating out of the subconscious belief that money is stressful. And because that's how you're operating your life from without even realizing it, money's going to be hard to come by, or it might cause stress, or might cause arguments in the marriage. Like there's so many different ways it can play out. And so the subconscious is one of my favorite things to work with, because that is where so many of our blocks and self-sabotaging patterns stem from before we even realize it. I just think it's so powerful how powerful the subconscious is and
Mm,
how much we can get out of reworking it and reprogramming it. Because the
mm,
beliefs that the subconscious believes, they're not fact. It's just a belief that it made that we operate from. So when we realize that and start deconstructing it, now you get to choose the new belief to replace that. And that is going to be how we create like lasting change, how we actually get results without these patterns showing up in another area of life and just keep perpetuating the cycles.
hmm. This is fascinating. So you said it's developed when we're children, right? That's what you said?
Yeah,
That
primarily,
is
yeah.
interesting. So we kind of like bring that into our adulthood. Huh. Okay,
Mm-hmm,
this is
mm-hmm.
making sense. So when we're what would maybe a thought be for someone want like why would someone want to like reprogram their subconscious? Like maybe like a traumatic event or like what would be the reasoning behind reprogramming?
It's so that we don't live out of the set points we create for ourselves with the old, outdated beliefs.
Mm,
And
okay.
so something that like everyone can do right now is like take a goal that you're working towards. Like take something that you really want to bring into your reality in 2025. And then ask yourself, and the subconscious is not, it doesn't always make sense to the naked eye. So
Hmm.
trust what arises, trust the process, but ask yourself, if I achieve this goal, one fear I have is,
Ooh.
and then just see what comes up. One fear I have about achieving this goal is, and it could be something like, I'm not good enough. It could be something like they're not going to like it. It could be something more specific, like my family is going to kick me out. There's whatever, and trust what comes up too.
Mm.
Another way I like to do is like the first time I remember feeling this way is,
Ooh.
and again, just seeing what naturally comes up. I did this like when I was healing my anxiety a lot because there was
Yeah.
feelings and sensations, but not necessarily stories. So I couldn't quite
Hmm.
pinpoint what it was connected to. So I just say like the first time I remember feeling this way is, and then like a memory would pop in. And again, it might not feel like it makes sense, but you
Hmm.
have to trust what arises because that's how the subconscious works.
Huh.
And then there we have what's looking to be met and rewired. The old, outdated operating system that is perpetuating the procrastination or the self doubt or the imposter syndrome or the inner critic, whatever it is for you. Now you can see it with a new lens and be like, oh, is that true? Is that really what happened? You're looking at a lot of the time, it's going to be a childhood experience, not always, but a lot of the
Okay.
time. And
Yeah.
so you're looking at this past experience with your fresh set of eyes from now. And you
Mm-hmm.
can just start seeing, like, okay, is that really what's happening? Like, what else could be happening? This also shows up like I work with a lot of startup companies
Mm-hmm.
and younger entrepreneurs. And if someone had like a business fail in the past, that can also get projected onto the future too. That's the subconscious
Right.
working. So when we can rewire it to either redefine what success and failure is, or to look
Mm-hmm.
back and say, like, was that actually a failure? Like, would you be where you are
Mm.
now with that experience?
Yeah.
These are all different ways that we can start creating new neural pathways so that the old subconscious belief is not how we operate anymore.
Oh wow, this is very interesting. I'm like very intrigued. Wow.
I love this work. It is so interesting to
That
me.
is so interesting. Now, what about like how would you describe like our sub our subconscious influencing our daily thoughts and actions every day? Like how does that work and like what does how does that influence us, I guess, is what I'm curious about.
Completely. And in all, like in every area. Because how we do one
Okay.
thing is how we do all things. And
Mm,
because it's part of the subconscious, we're not aware of the pattern. You don't see it until you see it. So in the leading
huh.
up to realizing that this is a subconscious pattern, you're just living out of it. So think about When you go to put your pants on, what leg do you step in first? And is
Ooh.
it always the same leg? Do you always brush your
Yeah.
teeth with the same hand?
Uh-huh.
Do like the default way of living is the subconscious on autopilot. This can also show up in um, like for example, if I have someone that comes to me and they never have enough time,
Mm,
or like if there's any if the person is doing the thing but not seeing the results,
right.
there's probably a subconscious pattern playing out because it's so sneaky. So
Hmm.
a lot of times I'm trying to find like a very like grounded specific example right now. Um, okay, so when I was kind of diving into this work at first, one of the subconscious patterns I had is I would get 99% complete with something and I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't follow through on the last 1%. So it's
Yep.
basically done, but I wouldn't ever actually put it out there. And this applied to work things like social media and worksheets I wanted to put out and workshops I was going to host and like things along those lines. But it was also in my personal life, almost reaching out to someone, almost
Yeah.
like, getting literally like dressed for the gym, but then something comes up so I don't actually go.
Right.
This was all a subconscious pattern around the fear of failure. My subconscious brain, it was
Mm.
connected to a memory from when I was about 7 years old, where I did not get 100% on a spelling test.
Oh.
That memory or that experience as a child, I know it's so precious when I look
It
back at
is
it.
precious. It's like
It is.
yeah, I picture it. Yeah.
But she took that to mean she was a failure, and that if it's not 100%,
Mm-hmm.
what's the point? It's not good enough if it's not 100%. And so,
Oh.
because of that, the subconscious, how I was operating was like, well, if I never get to the 100% mark, I can't fail. So I do everything up to that point. But because I never actually did 100%, I couldn't even fail. Like, I was like, it's almost like I walked away before I could fail.
Yes, right.
And this, like I said, was showing up in every area of my life and in such a sneaky way because
Hmm.
it never felt like I was procrastinating or just not following through because I was doing the work, I was doing
Yeah.
all the setup, I was showing up so hard, but it was just that 1% difference was being held back by the subconscious.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that because that's a really good like way to think about like someone thinking of an example or like how could I make XYZ different in my life or like I can never get to this point because maybe something else in their life. So
Mm-hmm.
that is that is really interesting. So how so you recognize this and then you realize it was because of your perfectionism when you were a child. So following that, when you kind of realize and recognize that, what was your next step in maybe achieving like putting out these workshops and
Yeah. I had a couple different tools that I kind of brought together. So I
yeah,
created more accountability. And so
love
I
it.
would say like letting I was working with a coach at the time. So I'd say, okay, this is what I'm completing by this deadline. She would
Mm-hmm.
usually check me on that because I usually had very ambitious deadlines. She's like, can you actually do it in that time? Never could. So she helped me manage that expectation of myself. And then I had someone checking on the back end to make sure I actually went through. I also
Okay.
brought in this mantra of like done is better than perfect.
Oh, I love that.
And I started building more value around a completed something
Right.
more than a perfect something. Because really, at the end of the day, perfect doesn't exist. We all
Yeah,
know that in
no,
our heads.
for
And I
sure.
started trying to bring that down to like how it's actually living. And I even put it on my phone background at some point. Done
Oh,
is better than perfect.
yes.
And then I just started playing with like letting myself be messy. This was really, really hard for my perfectionist. I even still to this day have to kind of challenge myself, and there's a lot of resistance around it. But like
Uh-huh.
putting out something that's not perfect. Like if there's a
Yeah,
typo, let it be a typo.
right.
If there's a blemish, whatever it is, let it be
Mhm.
real. Like real
Yes,
is
and
better than perfect.
authentic.
Authentic.
Yeah.
All of that is actually what I value. And it was just
Yeah.
something where I kind of gamified it. And so just by doing, and then
Mhm.
also staying busy enough that I couldn't ruminate on like, is it good enough? Is it not? I was just like, go, go,
Right.
go. Because I'm building that muscle of not buying into the perfectionism, but rather celebrating myself for completing. And
Mm.
that was part of that right there was the new neural pathway I was creating through reprogramming my subconscious. I was not
Wow.
putting the value in the perfection, I was putting the value in completion.
Mm. It's almost, yeah, it's reminding me of like getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
what this is reminding me of. And really,
Yes.
really living in that because that's a big one, I think. Like hearing you
Yes.
talk about that, I'm like, yes, it's almost like pinpointing something that you're like, ooh, this is tough for me. Because I think getting to the point of whether it be like you said, like publishing something or you know what I want to do? I want to write a book. And I've started writing a book, but have I finished it? No, because I'm scared. Like something
Yeah.
like that, that's a really good example. Like I
Yeah.
need to just do it, but it's like the time and maybe I'm putting my time into other things, but I think that's such a good example of like even like the rejection, right? Because like we could be nervous about being rejected, like, oh, like what if I put this out and what if it's not perfect, but also like what if no one cares about it? But then it's like you got to ask yourself, well, what if people do, right? Like
Yeah.
what if people want to download it? And what if one person is like that changed my life? That would be
Absolutely.
that would be powerful. And I think it's like the small little steps that get us to where we want, even if it's little tiny baby steps, you know?
Absolutely. One of my most powerful workshops, I had one attendee show up.
Love it.
Like, we never know the seeds we're planting. We
Mm,
never
it's
know
so true.
truly what is the best way this could go. And it's
Yeah.
so easy to get caught up in the metrics and the numbers and the tracking of it all. And it's like, of course, that's important. Of course, that's the
Right.
goal. But like, when that's not what happens, can you accept that, hold space for that, take all of the highlights and goodness and juice that's there? And take feedback, like what can be done
Right.
differently, like what, like, I mean, for that example, that was because I didn't market at all. So there's a lot of things where, when it's like twofold, it's like, yes, the metrics and the tracking is important, and that's not the full everything. There's
Yeah.
so much feedback along the way. It's like, it's not the view from the top, it's the journey along the way, it's the climb, all of that
Yeah.
goodness, because it's so true.
It is. And I think too, just like giving yourself the credit because and also I think too timing like if you have some new workshop on your website, right? And maybe it's up there for 2 weeks and then it's up there for a month, but then all of a sudden it's like 5 people do it in like 3 months and then you're like, oh, I just need to give it time because I think that's a common one, like you post something and you're like, oh, like it didn't hit, but then it's like then there'll be things I'll post or whatever and then all of a sudden I'm like something that I literally did in 5 seconds that does so well and then something that I spend hours on it will not hit and it's like I think that's just trial and error at the end of the day, but it
Hmm.
is really interesting to like think about. But I say just like do the thing because actually I was telling my friend this the other day. The biggest thing people on their deathbed say that they regret is things that they didn't try or do when they were
Mm.
younger. So I say, this is going to be my new mantra. Do the damn thing. Like,
Yes.
just do it. Just do it. Even if it's scary, even if it's like intimidating, I say do it. Because will you look back, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years down the road, and you're like, why didn't I try that thing? Like, just try it. And like you said from the beginning, you tried all these things and nothing was really sticking. And you're like, I have a passion. I know that there's something else out there. And you found it. So it's like, really continuing to move forward and find that thing that makes you feel so good every day, right? Like
Absolutely.
I think that's the American dream, but
I'm here for it. It
I
works.
love it. I love it.
I always say I'm passionate about passionate living. And everyone
Yes.
gets to define that
Beautiful.
for themselves. It's on your terms, whatever that means to you. Be
Mm-hmm.
passionate about life, like fall in love with life. And when that happens, like even when life is messy or painful, or like, I mean, life will continue to life,
It
but you get
totally
to like
will.
love the overarching experience of it. Because it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this one life, we have
It's
one
so
go.
true.
You only get older, you never get younger. And
It's
I
so
love
true.
that you brought back like the regrets are things that we don't try. I actually just said this to
Yes.
someone the other day where I have very, very few regrets in my life because when I
Yeah.
look back, I'm like, I, A, was always doing my best, but B,
Yeah.
I received so much growth and lessons and connection from each of those things that didn't pan out. And the one
Right.
regret that I can think of is a food I didn't try while I was traveling one time. And that,
I love
like,
it.
it's so perfect because it's true. It's the things
It's
that
true.
when we
Yeah.
hold ourselves back and when we let fear kick up or doubt kick up, that's what's going to fuel regret down the road. Going
Mm-hmm.
for it, trying your best, you will
Yeah.
never regret that.
I couldn't agree more. Beautifully said.
Oh, so good.
Any last thoughts before we get into our game?
So excited. The one thing I love leaving with people is something
Mm.
that was huge for me. I I encourage everyone to redefine what success means to you and what
Mm.
failure means to you. Because to me now, on the other side of this journey, I only fail, and this goes so perfect what we're saying, like I only fail when I give up, when I stop trying.
Yes.
And I am successful every time I get back up, every time I try again, every time I go back to that. And so everyone listening, at some point today, take 5 minutes and sit with that. What does success actually mean to you? What
Mm.
does failure actually mean to you? And hold those new phrases as you go through life and new experiences and challenges and goal setting and all of that. Because you'll be so surprised at how changing those definitions can change your approach and just the way you go at life.
Yeah. Oh, that's
That's all.
beautiful. I love that. That was a beautiful way to sum up this wonderful convo. All right, are you ready for the game?
I am. I'm so excited.
Yay. Okay, so this is called this or that. So pretty easy, just whichever one you like better, prefer, what have you. So the first one is pizza or pasta?
Ooh, pizza.
Pizza, love it. Are you an early riser or night owl?
Um, I'm an early riser. But I'm going to put a little asterisk that I prioritize sleep. So
Yes.
adjust it as needed, but I'm an early riser.
Love it, love it. Um, the ocean or a swimming pool?
The ocean.
Ocean, love it. Would you rather have eyes that film everything or ears that record everything?
I think, I think ears that hear everything.
Yeah,
That's a tricky one.
it's a tricky one. Yeah, but it would be cool to like play
But
back some
yeah,
conversations.
and like I'm nosy. I like to hear everything.
Right? It would be very cool. I agree.
But that's a close one. That was a very close tie.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so if you had to do one of these things for the rest of your life, online shopping or in-person shopping?
Online shopping.
Online. Love it. Love it. Would you rather like have a movie night at home or a movie night like at the theater?
Mm. I think I'd stay at home.
At home. Love it.
There's nothing that replaces movie theater popcorn. But
Agreed.
I love being like wrapped up in blankets, like on my couch, like cozy.
Oh, yes. You know what they should do? They should do takeout. Like you could go to the movie theater and like get the popcorn. Like, right? They should do
I'm
that.
Who's stopping us?
Right?
Like, can I
They
just like
should.
swing through the concession stand after the
Right.
grocery
Bye.
store and be like,
That's
like
so funny. That's a great
this,
idea.
this could be an idea.
Right?
Make
That
like a
is so funny.
drive-through.
That would be great because then you wouldn't even have to get out of the car. Yeah, that's
That's
genius.
dangerous. I need no one to do that because I would be there like weekly.
That's so funny. I'm obsessed. Okay, the next one you might love. Would you rather be a kid forever or be an adult forever? This is an interesting one.
This is an interesting one. I'm actually going to say I would be an adult for forever. I
Yes.
was a very serious child.
That's so
I
funny.
I like my games that I played with my sisters were like school, where I was the teacher and they were the students, or like
I love that.
things like that. Like I just loved the seriousness or like the adult living.
Yes. And I
And
think
like no one
like
can tell me what to do now.
right. And I think too, like you can still do things like my childhood was like swinging on a swing. Like that was like my favorite thing. So like you could still do those things, like
Yes.
feeding that inner child. Like I think there's still things you can do. I would also choose be an adult forever, 100%.
Yeah. Because I agree with you. Like you can play as an adult.
Yes, exactly. Love. The next one is, would you rather give up all technology or give up TV, movies, and books?
Oh, the way that books was thrown in their last moment.
I know, I love books.
All technology or TV, movies, and books. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm like looking at my bookshelf. It's like Sophie's Choice. I'm like, because I don't watch a lot of TVs or movies. I
That's
love my
true.
books.
I love books.
But I think ultimately, oh, I hate that this is my answer, but I think I would give up the movies, TV, and books
Yeah.
because I can read my books online.
That's a
Just
good
kidding. That's
point.
me cheating the game. I know that that's not how it's supposed to go.
You're like, I'll just do my Kindle or whatever. It's a good one. Would you rather own a private jet or own a yacht?
Ooh. Do I get to fly the jet?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Oh,
I
that.
guess that's up to you if you want a private pilot or if you want to.
Ooh, I want
Yeah.
both. I'm going to take the jet.
Love
I want
that.
to fly it when I want. I want to be a passenger princess when I want.
Yes. Oh, that's a
This
good
is
one.
also going to be a very like environmentally friendly jet. It's going to have
Uh,
no emissions that are problems. Just
yes.
because that's my jet.
I love that. I love that. That's gold. That's gold. Would you rather create a new holiday or create a new language?
Ooh, a language.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool. I definitely tried as a child.
I love that. That is so cute. So we were talking about traveling earlier. Would you rather travel somewhere new that you have never been to or somewhere familiar?
New. I love
New.
going somewhere new.
Love that. And then the last one is sunrise or sunset.
I'm a big sunset fan. I watch the
Love.
sunset every single day I'm able to.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Wow. Well, this
Special.
conversation literally blew my mind. My face
It was
hurts
so
from smiling in the best way.
good.
I love this so much. Thank you so much for sharing all of your incredible insight. Please let everyone know where they can connect and find you and anything else you got going on.
Yes, come say hi to me over on Instagram. It's Brittni.Cosgrove. Brittni's a little different. It's Brittni. Come say hey, hi. I want to hear like the insights and takeaways and like your favorite moments of this conversation. Like this was such a good conversation. I am like riding the high from it.
Love.
So come say hi. I want to hear like all of those insights. You can also find more on my website, BrittniCosgrove.com. I host workshops throughout the year and it's open to everyone. I like to have just a space for people to come and step into the life that they want. I'm such a stand for living life on your terms, and that is all that you'll find like on my webpage, Instagram. That's what it's for.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you. I love this. Thank you for having me.